Hello and welcome to the Practice Marketing Podcast, highlighting successful strategies from North America's fastest growing clinics and experts so you can learn from their wins and power your practice growth. Hi, I'm your host, Neil Trickett, CEO of Practice Promotions, and today's focus is on adding a golf simulator and membership program to your PT practice with Lukas Delorenzo here. Lukas is a physical therapist and the co-owner of COAST Rehab, a successful 3-location practice in New Jersey. And he's also been a Practice Promotions client for a long time here. And today, Lukas is going to talk to you about his golf clinic simulator and his membership program that he has around golf performance. And it's also getting you to think a little bit differently about how you can add additional streams of revenue and different programs into your practice. So, Lukas, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great. So give me a rundown here. Like, what is COAST Rehab's golf simulator and performance program, and what's that look like?
Yeah, so basically, when we opened COAST Rehab, my wife and I are the co-owners. So when we opened COAST Rehab in 2017, I had already had, if you want to call it like a specialty or a niche in the golf rehab and golf fitness community, with the Titleist Performance Institute. So TPI is, as many people I'm sure know, a company that helps to certify fitness and medical and golf professionals to, work with golfers essentially. We began that way, and basically kind of out of necessity in thinking that we could help our clients and our patients with their golf game and the way that they moved more effectively by seeing them swing in person, got us to eventually, a few steps happened in between this, but eventually adding a TrackMan golf simulator right into the office.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And so you started off with the performance program, the TPI program, which I've seen before in other practices. And,
yeah.
And there's that performance package there for golfers, right? And then you needed to be able to do more of the simulation of golf in your facility. So then you actually added in that golf simulator as to kind of enhance that program. And then I'm curious, are you at a point now where you actually also get people in from the golf simulator and then work them to the performance packages? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so basically, I think also to answer your first question, I've always been taught in terms of the marketing side of things to try to help people understand the end goal. What could you help them with? Is it increasing your driving distance, your club head speed? Is it play pain-free golf? Whatever that might look like. So that's kind of how we approached trying to get people to understand who we are and what we did. And then the menu, so to speak, from a business standpoint of the services that we can provide are numerous, but vary from that. So to make a long story short, people always ask me all the time, do you rehab golfers? It's like, yes, but if somebody comes in with a total knee replacement whose end goal eventually wants to be golfing, we're obviously not hitting golf balls 2 days post-op. We're rehabbing their knee to make sure that they can do all the things they need to do, like a total knee replacement, and then specialize. So it's actually been interesting because, I don't know if we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I've gotten more patients that way simply because they know that at the end they want to golf. They know they're not golfing yet, but they want to start with the golf guy and end with the golf guy, so to speak. Mm-hmm. One of the important things that I thought was going to be good for us from a revenue generation standpoint, but also just to let people see the facility, see that we have a TrackMan golf simulator and vice versa, is to actually name the simulator company something different than COAST Rehab. So it is COAST Rehab's golf simulator, but you don't have to be a patient of COAST Rehab to use it. So it's actually called COAST Golf, which you can find on the website or coastgolfclub.com. So people all the time will actually just book the simulator for an hour, like many other facilities in our area in central New Jersey, want to hit balls, want to play or practice or, do whatever, and then they'll kind of find out the COAST Rehab side of things. So it's, they find it either way. But in terms of, the rehabilitation part of it, that could either look like, as I described before, somebody coming in post-op or something similar, where eventually they'll get to golf, or specifically that they have pain because of golf, or they have an injury because of golf, that we may need to either rehab from or, look to see, much like we have a person, and his name's Jake. He's a physical therapist. He's a running specialist, and he does running analysis. And I tell people this all the time: if you are hurting because you're training for a marathon or a half marathon or whatever, Jake's going to look at the way that you run and see if there's a relationship between how you run, how your body moves, your strength deficits, et cetera, et cetera. I'm preaching to the choir. But, and then create a program around that. If we don't see people swing, but just see how they move, that only tells a piece of the story, a piece of the puzzle. Right. So that's kind of how, and then, from a performance standpoint, we could transition people to the performance program, or they could start in the performance program if that's really their only goal. Like if they think that they might need to increase their club at speed, or if they're getting older and they want to be more flexible, maybe they enter the program that way, which looks a little different. The menu's a little different. The pricing is a little different. We may or may not be able to utilize insurance depending on what they have going on. So that's kind of the umbrella, 10,000-foot view.
That's really cool. And so, you have an orthopedic sports physical therapy practice, right? And so what was it that drove you to say, hey, let me add golf services or golf performance program to what I already do as a PT?
Yeah, so I think that is, that's a question I get a lot. And I think that, and this isn't necessarily trying to deter anyone from adding golf, but I really am a firm believer that you should be authentic in whatever niche you try to create or have or want to have or whatever it might be. You're not fooling anybody. People are pretty smart and they can see if you are. Like, I don't know, I keep bringing up Jake, but Jake has a running niche. He does a running analysis, a gait analysis. He was a Division I runner. He runs marathons. He runs a sub whatever is good in marathon running. Like, he's good at it. People see that. They know that he's going to be training and that he runs and he does the same thing. And I don't necessarily think that you need to be a professional golfer to be a golf PT, but I do think that you should be authentic in that. And I think that is kind of how I started. When I was first coming out of PT school, I played college ice hockey growing up, and I played golf as well in high school and so forth. Didn't play in college, but one of my mentors told me, I think it would be a good idea to develop a niche, whatever that might be. Maybe it's back pain, maybe it's knee replacements, maybe it's ACL reconstructions, maybe it's, hockey. And I loved golf. I'd always loved golf. I was always pretty good at golf. And I found TPI. And I kind of just fell in love with, figuring out that there was kind of a systematic process and some creativity involved and some, artisanal side involved to help people play better golf. And, I don't know if I was thinking about this at the time, maybe a little bit, but that wasn't the main concern. But it turns out people like to spend money on golf, and they're willing to pay to improve their golf game, among other things. But that's one of the things. So, the revenue side, I know we're going to potentially talk about some of that sort of thing, but that was like the last thing we were thinking about. It was more just, I wanted to see golfers. I loved golf. I wanted to play golf as much as I could. And the fact that I worked really hard on trying to become very good at helping them, the patients came and the revenue came.
That's awesome. I really like what you said there. It's more about your passion, right? So what interests you, and you really nailed it there with the patients know, right? So when you're working with athletes, whatever sport, they want to gravitate towards experts. And so if you're just trying to pretend to be an expert without having a lot of interest in it, then, that's not really going to come across and be that successful. But if you have that interest in what you enjoy, why can't you add value-add services to your practice? Maybe it's a running program because you love running, or maybe it's a tennis program because you love tennis, right? There's lots and lots of different programs that you can put in your practice, because there's people are very willing to pay for enhancing their sport, right? And that's a very growing market in today's world. And if you got to be where things are in your particular community. So if you have that niche there in central New Jersey, there's a lot of golfers. There's a great opportunity there. Maybe you're in South Florida, there's big golf there, but maybe there's also big tennis. Maybe you're in the Northeast and there's a lot of ice hockey, as performance programs for, high school and college athletes that want to perform better. So there's all kinds of different niches that you can go into, but I like what you said though. It's really about where's your passion going to be to develop that.
Yeah. And I think I don't want that to deter people, but I remember even like I took the first 2 certifications. There's 3 in all the specialties for TPI, but I took the couple first certifications. I had never actually evaluated a golfer before. It's like almost like if I was in, PT school and I was on my first rotation, it's like, this is my first knee replacement. It's like, well, I love it. I want to be the knee replacement expert. Well, you're not the knee replacement expert the first time you see a knee replacement. You have to do it over and over and over again. But I think I think initially you got to be willing to at least make that commitment if that's what you want to be. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I wasn't as good as I am now as I was in 2016 or 15 or whenever I first took the TPI stuff. But I knew that that's what I wanted to kind of dedicate the next. It's really been 10 years now that I've been, seeing golfers and really, exclusively for probably the past 3 or 4 years, so it wasn't just all golfers all the time. And now, I knock on wood, we've gotten to the point where, and we've got a lot of other great physical therapists that work with us. But if you're not a golfer, if you don't say the word golf, then I'm not. You don't go on my schedule. That's how you get on my schedule.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. So that's really interesting too. Like you've obviously built your reputation with the community, right? And they know what you're able to offer now. And I think that's great advice. Like you're not going to be the expert the first time you try it, right? The first time you start out, but you could build that expertise, that authority with them.
Yep.
And so I'm kind of curious too, like in terms of, you've obviously built this additional revenue stream, this niche, right? You've kind of niched down into this area, but you still have the orthopedic physical therapy, clinic running there. So for you, like, do you see a lot of feeding back and forth from, say, your golf simulator, the TPI program, but also from the the orthopedic PT to that side? I'm kind of curious how you see that working.
Yeah, absolutely. We're, like you said, and I don't know if I was exactly thinking about this in 2014 or whatever it was, 15, but we are basically exactly in the middle, like 3 miles north and 3 miles south of 2 golf clubs that the application process is closed. You cannot, unless you're like the son of a member, there's a 15-year wait list and they close the application process.
Wow. What does that cost a year, right?
Yeah, well, we are in an area where there are a ton of golfers. And since COVID, people from Manhattan, people from Philadelphia, they're all moving. We're like a mile from the beach. And our other locations are in similar spots. But long story short, we got kind of lucky that there's such a huge community of golfers that, want to play, want to get better, love the game. So to answer your question, we get, and this was the hope, but we've only really been doing the TrackMan and Coast Golf. This is our second winter now, even though I've been seeing golfers for a decent amount of time. But we'll find people, and this is kind of how we created our our Coast Golf packages and our membership, which is slightly different than how you would enter like Coast Rehab 99% of the time if you just need physical therapy. But we see both ways where people will either enter the physical therapy side of it because they understand golf, and then we'll discuss with them the potential to be able to use the golf simulator and TrackMan as a way to improve their game when appropriate. Or we'll also have people who will find the simulator, just want to hit balls, and then learn a little bit more about TPI and the golf performance side of things. And then we'll also, the third one, which I think is really neat, is they'll enter like, I want to get better at golf. I've heard about this golf stuff and TPI. whatever you do, I don't even know if you're a physical therapist or a strength coach or a doctor or a golf instructor, like sometimes people think I'm going to give them lessons. They'll find that and I think that's a lot with what you guys have been able to do in terms of like just, you know, getting us more seen and, known on Google and through social media and stuff like that, to find out like, how do I get better at golf? Is this going to be helpful for me or not? And, we're not helping everybody. Like if somebody has never played golf before, I just had somebody the other day. They came in, they started a new sales job where they play a lot of golf and they want to get better at golf. They had never really played golf before. They don't need to see me. They need lessons. So, come back. So we're sending people, we're helping people and direct them to, friends of ours, people that send, swing instructors and golf pros, club pros that give lessons, that send us people. So we're kind of feeding that back and forth. But that's really how we find people entering and transitioning through the programs. It's not always 100%, which is a good thing because that's, potentially more people that you would see. It's not always just I enter rehab, I go through rehab, I enter the golf performance program, and I hit golf balls. It could be any direction that they see.
I think that, yeah, I love that because it makes a lot of sense. And when you have whatever program that you're offering, sometimes if it's a golf performance program, again, if it's a running program, if you're doing a stretch performance, whatever you're after, PT kind of membership programs, I think what's interesting is that it's not just a revenue stream after PT, right? It's actually a funnel, right? You're flowing people who would never have found you before, but now they find you through the program that you're offering, and then they go, oh, by the way, I am hurting over here. Well, let's take a look at that from the PT side, right? Exactly. So I love what you said there, that it's both a program, right, after PT, but it's also a funnel the other way, right? I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so can you tell us a little bit more about the COAST Golf kind of program there and how that runs? And is it a membership? How do you sell packages, things like that?
Yeah, so basically we have two ways. So there's really three ways that you could sort of enter COAST Golf. If you're a COAST Rehab patient, then you're automatically a member. So you automatically get the membership rates, the membership bundles, etc. The other way to become a member, if you're not a COAST Rehab patient already, there's basically two other ways. You could either three other ways. You could either pay by the hour just to hit golf balls and be COAST, you could be a client of COAST Golf and a member of COAST Golf and just want to use the simulator and not do any performance at all. Then there's two real groups of packages. The one package is the golf only package, and that is I really just want to hit golf balls. I want to, lower the price of my per hour, and I'll buy a 10-pack, a 5-pack, a 20-pack, whatever it might be. The one that we really, is kind of the one that we wanted to drive people towards is what's called the golf and body package. So the golf and body package is basically for a little bit extra. It's $25 extra per package. You get a TPI assessment with me and a stretching program. So I'll take an hour for only $25 additionally and run people through the assessment, watch them hit balls, talk about what the simulator and the TrackMan does and what they're doing in their swing. Not really giving them swing instruction, but just talking them through how their body might relate to the way that they're swinging. And then for a year after that, you become a member. So you get the membership pricing, which the hours less, and then you get, the 10-pack, the 20-pack, and the 5-pack are then less as you're a member for the rest of the year. That way, from a business standpoint, it incentivizes people to want to become a member and pay less money to hit balls. But it's also a way to have a more cost-effective way for people to try to hit indoor simulator golf and get better.
Yeah.
And that way, if it ends up being that during the, let's call a spade, if that first hour, if I'm able to kind of sell them on the importance of stretching and so forth and becoming a COAST Rehab patient or a COAST Golf client in terms of the golf fitness and performance, that's great. But realistically, we want people in the facility. We want people to see it. We want people to see what we do, outside in the physical therapy side of things and in the gym. And then, it gets people just more exposed to it, playing better, and then they'll tell everybody else that that's kind of what they.
Yeah, and it's a pretty unique program too, because if you just went to a golf club and they're going to do lessons with you, they're missing out on those other parts where they need to improve body mobility, right, or body strength or conditioning. So I think that's something very unique that you're offering there, and I love your business model there and your kind of business acumen, because you went with a membership program, and it's something that's quite unique in the PT world, right? Is that we're not thinking as much with membership programs as we could be. And if you look at very, very successful chains that are out there, your Massage Envies, Stretch Labs, like all these, I mean, it's a membership model, right? And that's there for a reason, because it works very well. And so I'm curious, when you started with the golf simulator, did you go with the intention to have a membership model, or were you going to sell packages first? I'm just kind of curious what you first started with there.
So I think we always wanted to do a membership model, but in our mindset, from a business standpoint, the way that we were going to create the most revenue, if we're talking about that, is to get people to do the performance and the rehab programs.
Mm-hmm.
Not really more hours on the simulator.
Gotcha.
It's from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So we always wanted to do a membership, but we wanted to try to figure out a way, and I have great people that I can call that help me try to decide how to go about doing this. Typically in the simulator community, multi-base simulator facilities, they'll do like a yearly like a monthly membership where they'll pay a certain amount of money, you get a certain amount of hours, and because and then every hour after that you use, it's a decreased price and you get some other incentives or whatever. Since we only have the one bay, then we didn't really do it that way. So we don't have the ability, like if you want to be a member, it's not $99 a month or $129 a month or whatever it is. That's one way to do it, but we went the other direction. And the last part of it, which somebody that is a very smart business mentor of mine, said like the driving package should be you showing them what you can do. And if they don't want to do it, then that's perfectly fine. But how do you get them? And so that's how we came up with the golf only and then the golf and body packages. And it's a way to become a member.
Yeah. And that makes sense too, because like for most of those kind of programs, you have like your entry level package, right? Because you're just getting people to just try you out, start that way. But then it's not your main money maker, right? Your main money maker is your second level or third tier package, whatever you have going on there. And what I see though is still at the core of your business is your clinic, right? And your clinic that helps rehabilitate people. And then you have a performance program, right, that helps people perform better with their bodies for the sport of golf.
Yep.
And then the simulator is a way to kind of introduce people to those other solutions that you have for them, right, to get them better in their sport.
Do you want more freedom in your clinic? Then you need to work on your business, not just in it. The top practice owners know that they need a marketing system that consistently attracts patients from the internet. And at Practice Promotions, we've helped hundreds of practice owners skyrocket to the top of Google and get more new patients from online. Go to practicepromotions.net/kit to get our free practice marketing sample kit. It includes all our digital marketing tips and tricks that will get you new patients from Google. That's practicepromotions.net/kit, KIT, for a free marketing kit. And now back to the show.
Yeah, and I think that not that I don't make any money from TrackMan. There's multiple other companies that, do kind of what TrackMan does. But I like to tell people all the time, and that's why I love having the simulator, is I try to tell people, like, we don't just have a simulator. You've got to look at it's a TrackMan. So every time you hit the ball, it's giving you feedback. And what I would notice before we had the Coast Golf and the TrackMan and the simulator, it was hard to objectify. Like, I could objectify if somebody was getting stronger or more range of motion. And then if I would tell them to go to a different simulator facility or use a TrackMan somewhere, like at their golf club or whatever, I would tell them some metrics like we need your club head speed and we need the ABC so that we can track it. We get baselines, we track it. Now we can just do it all in-house. So I think that is the other thing that I want people to understand. And I think that's why we wanted to do something where, in terms of the membership packaging and the golf and body package, like I wanted to get in front of people and tell them what the numbers mean. What are, I'm sitting in the TrackMan facility now, but like, what do all those numbers at the bottom of the screen mean? What does face angle mean and club head speed and all that, club path and smash factor? Like, what do all those things mean? Instead of just hitting balls, you're actually getting some. So we've kind of become, even in just like 2 years, even if you don't really do stuff at COAST Rehab or the Coast Golf Performance, people are learning how to use the simulator and the TrackMan more because they're here, I think. So we're kind of becoming like the practice facility versus like, and don't get me wrong, this is fun and there's a place for this, instead of like, I'm just going to go to the simulator bay company, bring some pizzas, bring 2 buddies, let's have a couple beers. There's a time and a place for that. And I'm guilty as charged in terms of doing that stuff. But if you want to get better at golf, trying to objectify your practice, and I'm preaching to the choir, but that's why we want people to get exposed to that stuff as well, which helps us on the other end. You can get more flexible. I have no idea if I'm getting it better at golf because I haven't hit a golf ball at all.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's a skill.
And so, what's sort of the size of the simulator when you installed that into your practice? Like, how much space did you have to have for that?
They recommend 400 to 500 square feet.
Oh, so it's not that much.
No, so like I'm in the room right now. I don't know if you can see it, but it's
looks great.
It's right. So I'm inside of it. Yeah, so it's not a lot. You just need a certain height requirement and a certain so that you won't hit your club off the ceiling, and then a certain width requirement. And we were lucky enough to have the ability to add that. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so before you added the golf simulator part in, how long were you running the TPI performance program for?
TPI performance program 2017.
Okay. So probably like.
So what is that?
Like 5 years, 6 years, something?
Yeah, exactly. Because we just had a year, and yeah, so basically 5 years. And we didn't. If I had to do it all over again, we didn't have the ability to do this in our space before because we shared it with a gym. But I would have loved to have. Like I would have added it way earlier if I could have.
Gotcha.
I don't feel like we didn't have the ability to do this, but I know some people maybe out there would be like, let me build up some golfers first. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, or build up some runners or whatever it is. But sometimes if you build it, they will come, right? Like I've seen so many more golfers since we've added this. And I think it also helps that we've had the ability for you guys to help us with having people search us easier and find us better. But yeah, so I would have definitely, but yeah, I did the TPI stuff for 5 years previous to having the simulator.
Yeah, because I know we work with clients that have that performance program in there. They offer that in their facility, but I haven't seen really too many people have the golf simulator part of it. So that's really interesting to hear that once you added that component, not going from like a massive moneymaker part of it, but just to kind of enhance what that extra program was for the TPI.
Yeah.
I think that's a very smart investment. And what's cool is that it doesn't take up like an enormous amount of space, right? So it's a really cool thing that you've done. No. So I'm curious, obviously you started out with the COAST Rehab part of it here. So how did you market COAST Rehab kind of initially when you got started, and so how things change and evolve over time with your marketing?
I think just in terms of the marketing for COAST Rehab, I think the biggest thing is we've just I've always been a firm believer in trying to develop as many referral sources as you can, but have them be legitimate referral sources, like whether you're developing relationships with physicians or instead of just, kind of like jack of all trades, master of none, like having some very solid referral sources and multiple referral sources. Like, for instance, we don't have a golf pro people have said, like, you should get a golf pro in here and they could do lessons. It's like, well, we, just like with doctors, we get referrals from multiple doctors, and based on their specialty, we like to refer back to them, and that kind of keeps everything going. That's part of one of our marketing things. Same thing with swing instructors. We have people that are giving lessons. There's multiple clubs, swing instructors, other simulator facilities. Like, we're not trying to steal people from their simulator facilities, but if they think we can help them on the fitness aspect, then we want them to trust us that they're going to go back and use that simulator facility. Or if they're a member of a golf club, that, they can refer to us. But in terms of the way that the marketing, in terms of trying to get patients for COAST Rehab, not necessarily COAST Golf, and COAST Golf is kind of the same, honestly, but it's just been developing relationships with physicians is number one, and I'm giving a thumbs up, sorry. That's number one, and I know there's a large push out there in the physical therapy community to, like, do your own marketing, not necessarily rely on physician referrals, and I completely disagree with it. But I digress. I don't. That's another time and another place. But we've had some great physicians that we have close relationships with. That's always been the same. That was our bread and butter, why we were comfortable enough to start on our own to begin with. Definitely, we didn't start with practice promotions when we first started. It took us maybe 6 months or 9 months, and my wife found you guys, and we've continued to increase. And I was not told to say this at all, for whoever's listening, by Neil, but anytime we've spent more money and trusted that more, we've seen the return, like with using, the higher levels of packaging and spending more money on, like, Google advertisement and things like that our team is helping us with, or your team is helping us with. And then, I think it kind of starts within, and having people understand that, especially in New Jersey, it's one of the only states that allows physician-owned practices. So it's not easy in New Jersey to get people. So we like to tell people, and we tell our PTs this all the time, if your patients are having great experiences, then let them know that they help us stay doing what we're doing in the way that we do things, and not have to, work for anybody else or corporate, some of those other things, by telling people about it, by telling their physicians about it. And so that's probably been the big three. That's, I always say that: doctors, Google, and some of the other stuff that we've done for, like, search engine optimization stuff, and then word of mouth, among other things. So that hasn't necessarily changed. I think the biggest thing that's changed is our specificity of marketing with what the type of patient that we want to see. Instead of being like physical therapy, we do a lot of great physical therapy things, sports and orthopedics, to now it's like, okay, Jake, your job is to, not job, but, like, if you want to see runners, we got to tell people how great you are as the running guy. Not that you're just a great physical therapist, but let's go from that angle, and the golf thing. So now I have the same physicians that I potentially had sending me patients in 2017 are sending us still a decent amount of patients, but now even sending us more golfers because they know the specifics of that niche.
That's awesome. I think too that what's really cool about that is what you were just saying about your PT, Jake, right? And that, there's so many opportunities for developing programs in a clinic, and you got to look within your team. How can you help develop them professionally? And you can just be your regular PT day in, day out, but you do have your shining stars that want to do more. So, can you develop that person to become what they love doing? And in his case, it's running, right? Running clinics and things like that. Give them the opportunity to develop that. And I can see you've done an excellent job with that. That's really cool to see.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't say, obviously we've got 8 other, I think we have 9 total physical therapists, and they each have, we encourage them to each have a little something. Like, if you call for TMJD, like, that you're going to see Kim. If you call the Tom's River office and you're an overhead throwing athlete, you're seeing Dom, and Rufus had. So it's not necessarily like we think that we're pretty good at a lot of orthopedic and sports things, but I've found I'm a true believer. When you go to the orthopedist, if you got a shoulder issue, you're not seeing the knee guy. Not necessarily saying that the knee guy couldn't see the shoulder guy, but it's nice to be able to have that. And I think that within a subset of PTs, I think that it's a good thing to, especially even if it's just that clinic, and we've got some PTs that are like, we'll both see ACLs. Okay, great. Like, I'm okay with not seeing an ACL again unless, 9 months from now they want to golf. But if they're going back to soccer, I don't, that's not where I am anymore in my career. So long story short, I do believe that even if it's like even if there's like a one person PT clinic that it's just themselves, I really think that having some kind of specialty, one or two, is a great thing.
Yeah, and I look at it too, like as a way to develop your team, your staff, give them opportunities, and I think it's going to help a lot too with retention, keeping people moving forward, right? And it helps everybody. It helps the PT out, it helps the clinic out, it helps the patients out.
Yeah.
And so I think you've got a great approach there in how you look at those different niches of treatment that you can help the clinician specialize in.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm curious too, from your end, you had mentioned this, and part of it was obviously your physician networks, right, that you built up. The part was really going more direct to consumer online, and then also building your word of mouth with your patients, right? And so I know we had a chat a few years back about Google Ads, right? And you started to do Google Ads. I'm curious what was the impact that you've seen for your different programs because of Google Ads?
Yeah. So, I would say, as a whole, as a company as a whole, it's got to be 10% increase, just off the top in terms of patient volume and revenue, at least. In terms of the golf, we haven't spent per se any Google ad money on the Manasquan office and Coast Golf, but the things that the team is helping us to understand with like reviews and pictures and how that's building up our following on that. In terms of some of the other things, and this goes with niche, I don't know how specific you want me to get, but like trigger point dry needling and the running analysis and some things that we're doing in the Toms River office, 10%, like it's increased. There's no doubt about it. It's like I keep telling Sean, it's like, if you tell me that I'm spending X and we're making Y, or we're getting a certain number, like, let's just keep doing a little bit more, because I think it's almost been a no-brainer. Like, I'm sorry that I didn't do it earlier. And I was very skeptical. I didn't think it was really overly necessary because, luckily we were kind of busy-ish from day one. In Manasquan, we were always kind of in the top few on, Google, if you physical therapy near me kind of thing. But like I said, I think that, some of my business mentors, and it's really hard to spend. It's easier, you make some money, you generate some revenue, you spend money, but it's not easy to spend the money initially. And we're learning, and we're lucky enough to be able to have the opportunity to do this. But like, we opened our freehold office about a year ago. Like, immediately we're putting money into, all of those types of things to try to build it. And we're getting ready to hopefully hire a second PT within the summertime. So yeah, long story short, it's been great. And I think having it be targeted for a few things has been, even just targeted to like sports. That seems like a broad topic, but that's kind of a target. And if you're set up for that and you can treat those people well, and people see that, and then the reviews, and it just keeps building, I think it's been huge for us.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's a multi-layer thing. I think it's a very common thing to say, oh, we're doing pretty good. We're ranking fairly high on Google. And so there's a couple things you want. One is obviously to rank as high as you can on Google, but you also want to be able to rank as many times on Google as you can, right? And so if you could be at the top, if you could be in the maps, if you can be in the top 10 section, the more spots that you're going to have on page one of Google is what's going to make people want to reach out to you. So that's really part of ads too, is helping you get to the very, very top of Google, which is the paid ad section.
Yeah.
But also you just have more repetition on the page, so that people are more likely to click on you. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So we're just from your perspective too. We're kind of wrapping this up anyway here, but I wanted to see from we've talked about the different things here today. Obviously, niching down, right, in your kind of different specialties, performance programs. What would you say to a practice owner out there who's considering adding some sort of other, sports program to their clinic? What are some of the things that they had to think about, and what's the opportunities for them with that?
Not that I'm exactly an expert, but I would say that I would say a few things. If you think that you are good enough to kind of handle it, right? Because like I took a running course once, like 10 years ago or something. I was like, I'm going to see some runners, and then I'm seeing Jake. I'm like, I keep going back to Jake, but I'm seeing some overhead athletes that took a course, and if you think you're good enough to like talk the talk and kind of walk the walk, I am so glad that I didn't spend less money on how do I say this? There's multiple layers of simulators. So I went with basically the most expensive one and the most expensive setup, and it's a value add. It shows that you're kind of serious. Not everybody has that budget or that ability, but I would just say that I think that if you feel like you're good enough to do that, whatever the program is, invest in making it be the best program. That doesn't necessarily mean that just you're the best. It means that the simulator is the best, the turf is the best. Like people see, they're like, I went to this other place and it didn't look like they had the same turf. It's like, yeah, they didn't get the same turf. But does that matter? Well, yeah, I can practice better here because this is, like just little things like that, add up. So that's what I would say. I don't know. That I would just, it just makes the whole program. It's like we're serious, and
I like that. Yeah, I mean, I think I remember like a quote in the past, and it's basically like, whatever you do, be a professional at it. Don't be an amateur. Don't dabble. If you're gonna like create a running program, if you're gonna create a golf program, like do it professionally, right? And people will perceive that. So if you're spending a little extra money, you get the right equipment and the right setup and the right people, it's gonna, take a little effort, but it'll probably get going much better than it would if it was just very amateur stuff, right? So I think that goes for anything that we do in life, especially in business, that if we do it right, be professional at it. So fantastic advice.
Yeah, that's what I would say. And I would say too, if there's like a specific golf community out there that's watching, and not just necessarily like, obviously hopefully this helps more than just people that are interested in golf. But I think even if you don't feel like there's enough space, or you don't just want to have a TrackMan in your office, whatever that is, there's more opportunity to help the person, the patient, the client, the golfer by, like I try to talk to as many golf pros as I can about how they teach their swing, what they like to see during the swing, so that if I do have one of their players, I'm giving similar cues to their players that they would give, and not my own bias. Like if this person's really working on hip rotation, and that's what this golf pro believes in more so than being, more handsy. There's multiple ways to think about this, but I'm giving the same cues. Like remember, your pro wants you to feel like you're pushing more with this leg. So during this exercise, have that same feel. So we're communicating with the golf pros. I'm also talking a lot about the golf swing to them, and trying to pretend like I could almost coach the swing myself. I don't do that because I'm not a swing instructor, but I'm trying to learn as much about the golf swing as I possibly can. So I'm extending to that part. And then, if you're in the Northeast, especially in 2025, I probably even, even in the South or whatever, you could do this a little different way, but definitely in the Northeast, like in our several counties that we have clinics in, I could name you like 10 simulator facilities. That's how many there are. So if you can't have one, but you want to try to set something up with pros that are there, or, if you see a golfer and you know that they need club head speed, their typical swing path, what they hit certain distances and things like that, you could create, here's what I need. Can you go to this pro and take a 30-minute lesson? I'll pay for your 30-minute lesson, but I need you to be able to talk to this pro and get these numbers for me so we could create a program around it.
Mm-hmm.
That ends up you're taking lessons from that pro now. That pro loves that you're taking lessons from them because you referred them, and vice versa. But there's plenty of ways to kind of do that. But that's kind of what I would. Another like little side note, just to like the golf community of it. If I've always had the ability to use simulators and golf pros, and that's how I kind of got my start. I could get people to go to a golf course that they weren't even a member of and hit on the range because the golf pro would allow me to do that. I've been very fortunate for that. But if you can't just make golfers better by having them do cable columns. You got to apply the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that has to be, and this is what I learned like in TPI, literally in California, it's like you got to see their swing. Yeah. How can you know if they're running? You got to see them run. If they're a thrower, you got to see them throw. You got to look at their mechanics a little bit, whether you're the expert at teaching them the mechanics or somebody else, or you could find multiple people to do that. It has to be a part of it. And that's going to help. If you can develop that, that's going to help business grow, even if you're just seeing golf fitness people all day long.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Lucas, thank you so much for your insight here. Congratulations on all your success there with your golf program, and it's really fascinating to hear. Thank you. Yeah. So to all the listeners out there, definitely check out Lucas is there at COAST Rehab in New Jersey and Coast Golf in New Jersey. You got some fantastic program that he's put together, and I think you can get a lot of information from that.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to, if anybody has any questions or anything like that, or if they have any insight to how I could do things better, I'd love to hear from them if they're doing it on a higher scale or a different scale than I am. But if they, info@coastrehabnj.com is my email. More than love to hear from anybody. info@coastrehabnj.com.
Fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. And to all listeners out there, thank you for taking the time to listen to our podcast. Hopefully this was helpful to you. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast as well as our YouTube channel. There's lots of great information for you there. And check out practicepromotions.net for lots of marketing tips and advice. So this is Neil Trickett from the Practice Marketing Podcast and Practice Promotions, wishing you much success in your practice.
A free way for you to support our show is by leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It's a chance for you to tell us what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it as well. Just scroll down to ratings and review on your phone and click Write a Review. Thanks.